Now, the reason we're doing this video is because we get a lot of emails and comments from you guys saying, Jeep Wranglers are slow and uncomfortable, and they drive poorly, and they tip over at the wake of a light fart. And I've daily driven actually, a couple different Wranglers over the years. And to some extent, those comments are true about the old Wranglers. But this isn't any old Wrangler. This is a new JL, and it's actually very refined.
Behind me is a Jeep Wrangler. Now, you know that a Wrangler lives, well, in the outdoors. It's basically a four-wheel drive, go anywhere off-roader. And that one specifically costs $64,000. That's a lot of money. And you'd expect it to do really well out here in Colorado. But how good is it on the road? Does it really compete with other cars in terms of comfort, in terms of equipment, in terms of fit and finish that cost $64,000? Well, we're gonna find out in this video, and Tommy, who's behind the camera, is gonna help me. So Tommy, why don't you show them around the Wrangler?
You'd expect the Wrangler to be good off-road, and it absolutely is great off-road with solid axles and the big chunky tires and the locking differentials. But actually, some of that stuff makes it good in city environments as well. For example, a lot of ground clearance so you can run over curbs without issues. And up here we've got this big steel bumper, which means fender benders really aren't a big deal in the new Wrangler.
Oh yeah, check it out guys. The best top in the biz just got a whole lot better. The Super Top Ultra features some of the most advanced tech. Let me show you. It only takes a few seconds to flip this Sunrider all the way back and get an incredible panoramic view. And here's the brilliant part. All you have to do is slide these windows out, and check this out. What more can I say? It can't be any easier than that. That entire process took minutes, but if you're like me and you love that fastback look, kind of nice and sexy back here, the Trek Top Ultra is the one for you. Check it out.
Let's talk about the construction of these vehicles.
Right.
Solid axles in the front and rear, body on frame construction. In the past, that's a very uncomfortable recipe for a road-going vehicle, because when you have a solid axle, when you hit a bump with one wheel, it automatically affects the other wheel as well, if my R is the axle here. But Jeep has done so much work in designing and refining this coil spring suspension setup to the point where it's hard to differentiate a Wrangler from, almost a Grand Cherokee in on-road characteristics.
Yeah, I agree, but let's be honest, Tommy, and completely transparent. It's not all like butterflies and unicorns, right? These seats are pretty horrible. I'm sorry, they're not very comfortable.
Yeah.
I am pretty tight in terms of space up here. I'd want to be able to actually take the seat and move it farther back, but I can't. And dynamically, when you're on the road, you are still driving a vehicle that is, old school, 10 inches of ground clearance, and it's not going to handle as well, especially in an emergency situation. So while it does have all the safety features, it still does have some rather old school liabilities when it comes to modern vehicles on the road.
I think there's no getting around that to some extent. But have you driven our old YJ? The one I drove to school for 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, that was a tractor.
Yeah, you were lucky to get door handles in that Jeep.
So here's the thing, Tommy. For $64,000, you of course get things like a locking front and a locking rear differential, a disconnectable sway bar, four-wheel drive, a low-speed transfer case. We all know that Wranglers have that, but did you know that you also get all the safety and comfort features that you would expect in a $64,000 car? So right here I have my heated steering wheel, right next to it I have my heated seats, right here I have my automatic distance proximity cruise control, I have blindside monitoring, I have automatic braking. Pretty much everything that you'd expect from a high-end, expensive luxury car, you now can get in a Wrangler. That doesn't mean it's safe, because in Europe this Wrangler has not done so well in their safety tests. But in terms of luxury features, this Wrangler has it all.
and it's easily the best heated steering wheel in the business.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, man. Especially in the winter right now, I could live with this thing on my lap while watching TV. It's so good.
Yeah, you could fry a turkey on that heated steering wheel.
And this Uconnect system is actually really good too. It's really intuitive. There's a lot of information, even all the information in the center display, right?
Right. One thing that does not work very well at all, which we figured out on this trip, the defrost for the windshield is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, it's unacceptable. There's vents here in the front, and then there's huge gaps on both sides of the windshield, which just allows snow and ice to pile up, and it doesn't unfreeze.
Yeah, that's no good. And the other thing I think that people should be aware of is that this is a proper four-wheel drive, not an all-wheel drive. So like a modern, pick a competing vehicle. Let's say you're competing with, I don't know, a 4Runner. Well, that's also four-wheel drive, but let's say you're competing with an X5, right? BMW X5.
Sure.
Because you can get an X5 for $64,000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's all-wheel drive. And basically it'll be all-wheel drive all the time, and it'll send power to wherever you want it to. Here you actually have to manually engage 4 high.
Yeah.
And then you've got the situation where it's not sending power to whichever wheel needs it, it's just sending power to all 4 wheels.
Yeah, and depending on the Wrangler, you can also get a version of the 4-wheel drive system with an auto function.
Right.
But the vast majority are going to be this 2-high, 4-high with a lever. Luckily, unlike the CJs, you don't have to get out and like lock the hubs, right?
Right.
So it's an easy system. You can do it on the fly.
Now, part of the reason that this particular Wrangler is so expensive is under the hood. Because you can get 3 engines in a Wrangler. You can get the Pentastar, which is a traditional V6. You can get a 2-liter turbo, or you can get this. It's a 3-liter diesel that puts out over 400 pound-foot of torque. But the great news about the diesel is that it gets, get this, 29 mpg on the highway, according to the EPA. And that's a pretty phenomenal number for a vehicle that's basically like driving a brick into the wind.
Now, transmission-wise, there's 2 options in the Wrangler. There's a 6-speed manual and an 8-speed automatic. This diesel only comes in the automatic. What do you think of the power plant and kind of the drivetrain?
Hey, I would pay extra for a manual, Tommy. I mean, there's no other car actually out there that directly competes with this where, you know, you get a manual. I think you can still get one of the 4Runner, right? But you certainly can't get one of the G-Wagon.
You can't get one of the 4Runner.
You can't?
No.
It's automatic only?
It's automatic only.
There you go. And how about the new Defender, automatic only?
Yeah, automatic only.
Yeah, so if you want a manual, you got to get it in the Wrangler. Of course, they just recalled the manual.
In the Gladiator, yeah. Yeah, they did. The automatic in this is super smooth, though.
Yep.
Right? It shifts pretty quickly, and this diesel makes so much torque at any RPM. So it could be 1,500 RPM at 70 miles an hour, or 2,500 RPM, you know, building up to highway speeds. The thing is really responsive.
One word for you, Tommy: iconic. And that's why you pay so much for this vehicle. This classic 7-slotted grille, the 2 little lights on the front of it. Everybody in the world knows that this is a Jeep. Just like everybody in the world probably knows what a G-Wagon is. So iconic vehicles are just more expensive. A G-Wagon starts at $125,000. This starts at $25,000, which, when you think about it, is one hell of a bargain.
Now, the old school Wranglers you're probably thinking of are 2-door convertible models. Well, this one is actually a lot more practical than those old CJs and Wranglers, because this now has fun in the front as well as friends in the back. These are, of course, 4-door Wranglers, and this new JL trim actually has a lot of rear seat legroom, which makes it pretty useful every day.
Tommy, I'm not sure about a lot of room in the back. I mean, look at you. How tall are you?
6'1".
Yeah, you're kind of cramped.
No, I completely disagree. I have a ton of room in here. Actually, more room than a Range Rover Sport we just had. Tons of legroom, plenty of headroom. The 4-door Wranglers are very comfortable in the rear seat.
At this point, you might be wondering, how the heck do we manage to snag a $64,000 Wrangler? Well, it's simple. There are 2 options in this Wrangler that make it very expensive and also make it worth every penny, in my mind. First and foremost is the diesel engine. That's a $4,000 option, but there's another $4,000 option, and that's right here. It's this top that allows you, with one push of a button, that allows you to make it completely open. But more important than just this top is the fact that every Wrangler is a convertible. So basically you're getting 2 cars for the price of one. You're getting a daily commuter, plus you're getting kind of the ultimate beach car, where you can not only take the roof off, but you can take the doors off, you can fold the windshield down. That's a lot of coolness in one car.
big deal, the big improvement in terms of on-road everyday use that I found over our previous Wranglers is just the quietness.
Yeah.
So all three tops, be it this retractable soft top, the best top soft top, or the hard top, are so much quieter and better at isolating the road than previous generations.
Yeah, now we've driven a JK to the 50 highest points in all 50 states. That was like 36,000 miles, Tommy. And I gotta tell you, the JK is the previous version of this. I would much rather do it in this.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. It's more comfortable. It's more quiet. It's just a better Jeep.
You know what's actually remarkable about this vehicle? It's super loud from the outside with that diesel, but inside it's really quiet. So they must have put a lot of effort in toning down that diesel, at least when you're sitting on the inside of the thing.
So the interior on the Wrangler is a lot nicer than the old ones. If you've never sat in the new JL Wrangler, you definitely should give it a try because it's so much more comfortable than the previous generation. So we've got like a leather stitched dash here, leather on the steering wheel, leather seats. It still is pretty upright, but it's very comfortable. I mean, it's not BMW levels, but it certainly is more comfortable than like your average Toyota RAV4 in my opinion. Very usable. The buttons are easily laid out. Heated seats, heated steering wheel is all easily available. The Uconnect system is great.
So Tommy, unlike most cars, you actually get a real spare tire in a Wrangler, right? You don't have that Space Saver, you don't have those goofy run flats. Look at this, a real tire that whether you're on-road or off-road is extremely useful in case of a puncture. Plus, look at this. You get not only a tailgate, but look at all the room back here. And let's face it, Tommy, while most people call this a Jeep and not an SUV, it really is an SUV. So you get all the utility with all the usefulness that comes from a full-size family hauler.
There's definitely one area where the Wrangler isn't very good, and that's towing capacity, because even with this massively powerful diesel engine, it's still only rated to tow 3,500 pounds when properly equipped. So a lot of mid-sized SUVs will actually out-tow even this 400 pound-foot of torque Wrangler.
I think, Tommy, the Jeep wants you to get a Gladiator if you want to tow them. That's the message I'm hearing loud and clear.
Yeah, I agree. We should talk about the characteristics of each engine. So the base engine's a 3.6. It's been around since 2012. It's proven itself to be reliable, it's smooth, it's quiet, but it's also quite boring.
Yeah, it's quite boring, and you know, it's like a set of blue jeans. It does what you want it to do, but you know, everybody's got it, and it's pretty pedestrian.
Yeah, but they use it in the Charger, and the Challenger, and the Ram. I mean, it's in everything. Then there's a 2-liter turbo,
which we had problems with. It left us stranded.
And then I got a check engine light. The battery issue has returned. Also, we're on a complete shelf road. Like, of all the places to have this issue, the top of Mount Evans is not one of them.
Do they even come and tow up here? Well, I guess they'll tow.
I don't know if they will. They're closing this road in 4 days.
Oh, the engine just stalled.
No, it's okay. Still right. Go.
It's still right. I'm gonna drive. Okay. We did, yes. That is a
it's a 48-volt mild hybrid system.
It's turbocharged
with e-torque.
Yep, 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
And it's a hot rod.
Yeah.
You know, it's
fast.
really fast. Yeah.
But it's
very high strung.
Very high strung. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's this engine, the Big Daddy, the diesel, and this is kind of a little bit slower, but it's lumpy. It sounds
Torquey.
Cool.
And this is the one you want if you're going to actually customize this thing. If you're going to go like 35s or bigger, the problem when you have the Pentastar, and certainly when you have the little 2-liter, is you're going to run out of power and gearing. With this, you're never going to run out of torque, right? I mean, you could probably go up to 40s and not have to re-gear it or worry about actually having enough oomph to turn those big-ass tires and wheels.
Yeah, I agree. Now, in terms of daily driving the Jeep, on-road characteristics, I mentioned that this is as good on-road as like a Grand Cherokee. That's probably a little bit generous. And the ride is equally as good as a Grand Cherokee, except over potholes, but every day the ride is great. Brakes are good, body lean is okay, steering is still pretty bad.
Yeah, steering is not, I mean, you know, automotive journalists always use these words like numb and non-communicative. Yeah, this kind of defines that.
Right. It works. Like it'll steer the Jeep,
Yeah,
but
yeah. It's like you
Yeah.
point it, it'll go there, but that's about it.
compared to like I don't know, an X3, X5,
Yeah.
or Mercedes SUV
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, and the brakes are fine.
Yeah, they do the job. So I hope that we've convinced you that on the road, the Wrangler is not the four-wheeled motorized wheelbarrow that it once used to be. It's very comfortable, very refined, and actually pretty darn quiet as well. Of course, this one is way expensive, but you can get into one for about $40,000, $35,000. It'll also be pretty comfortable for everyday use.
Heck, Tom, you can get into one for $25,000 if you don't mind like roll-up windows and small wheels on it. Soft top.
Yeah, those are going to be a little bit less comfortable, but certainly if you spec it out right, it can be a great daily driver. Well, as always, this is Tommy.
And this is Roman saying thanks for watching.
And head over to tflcar.com for the latest and greatest in news, views.
And real-world reviews. You know what? I really want one of those $25,000 Wranglers.
Yeah, me too. I think it'd be super fun.